Hi, my friends. Today I want to present you a new story. Enjoy watching it.
The soft hum of the gas station at dusk had become almost comforting to me. I'd gotten used to the rhythm, cars pulling in, people mumbling their thanks, the scent of gasoline hanging in the air. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills. I was wiping down the counter when I noticed a battered blue sedan pulling into the lot. The kind of car that seemed to have 1,000 stories to tell, the paint chipped, the tires scuffed. The door opened slowly and out stepped an older woman. Her silver hair glistened under the fading light, a stark contrast to the dark, worn-out jacket she wore. She moved with a grace that caught my attention, though it was clear age had slowed her down. Something about her seemed familiar, but I couldn't place it at first. She walked toward me, her steps deliberate yet gentle. "Evening," she said, her voice soft, almost like music. "Could you fill it up for me, dear?" I nodded, reaching for the pump. As I moved closer, my eyes drifted down to her wrist. There it was, a birthmark, shaped like a heart, faint but distinct, nestled just above her veins. My breath caught in my throat. No, it couldn't be. It was impossible. My hands trembled slightly as I attached the nozzle, my mind racing back to memories I thought I had long buried. I couldn't help but stare, my heart pounding louder than the quiet hum of the car's engine. I had seen that birthmark before, on the wrist of Tracy Barker, my old vocal coach. The woman who had taught me to sing, who had encouraged my dreams when no one else had. But she was gone, vanished from my life without a word. Could it be her? "Everything all right, dear?" Her voice cut through my thoughts, bringing me back to the present. I cleared my throat, trying to steady myself. "I'm sorry, but your name wouldn't happen to be Tracy, would it?" She gave me a curious look, her eyebrows lifting. "Yes, it is," she said slowly. "Tracy Barker." "Why do you ask?" My heart skipped a beat. I couldn't believe it. "It's me, Virginia. Virginia Babcock. You used to be my vocal coach. You taught me when I was younger." Tracy's eyes widened with recognition. For a moment, it was as if the years melted away. "Virginia. My goodness, is it really you?" Her hand flew to her chest, her voice wavering with emotion. "Look at you, all grown up. I can hardly believe it." I smiled, a lump forming in my throat as memories of those days rushed back. "It's been a long time." She chuckled softly, shaking her head in disbelief. "Far too long." "What are you doing here?" I shrugged, feeling a sudden heaviness in my chest. "Working." Life took me in a different direction. I didn't have much choice. Her face softened, her eyes searching mine as if she could see the path I hadn't spoken of. "I always thought you'd go far with your singing," she said gently. I hesitated, glancing down. I stopped singing a while ago." Tracy's expression changed, a flicker of sadness crossing her features. "That's a shame, Virginia. You had such a gift." I opened my mouth to respond, but the words wouldn't come. Tracy studied me for a moment before stepping closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Why don't you take a break? I think we have a lot to catch up on." I looked around the empty gas station and nodded. "Yeah, I think we do." As I finished fueling her car, I couldn't shake the feeling that fate had brought her back into my life for a reason. Tracy was a part of a past I had tried to forget, a past filled with dreams that once burned so brightly. And now, standing before me, she felt like a glimmer of something I had lost long ago. Tracy leaned back in her chair, eyes scanning the distant horizon as though searching for something long lost. The sun was beginning to dip lower, casting a golden glow over the gas station, but I could feel the weight of something darker settling between us. She hadn't told me everything about her past, and I knew that today, something would finally come to light. "I never shared much about my own life with you and Maggie," Tracy began softly, her fingers trembling slightly as she cradled her tea. "I always focused on helping you two, on guiding your voices, but life was harder than I let on." I looked at her closely, her eyes betraying a sorrow I hadn't noticed before. Tracy had always been a pillar of strength when we were kids, especially for Maggie and me. I couldn't imagine the woman in front of me having endured the kind of pain I saw reflected in her gaze. "I wasn't always just a vocal coach. I had dreams too, Virginia. Big ones," she said, her voice heavy with the memories. "I wanted to sing, travel the world, perform on the biggest stages, but life doesn't always give you what you want." I shifted in my seat, feeling the familiar pang of my own unfulfilled dreams. Tracy's words resonated deeply. I fell in love with someone, a man who seemed like he was everything, she continued, her voice thick with bitterness. But he wasn't. He controlled me, made me believe I wasn't good enough. By the time I realized what he was doing, I had lost so much of myself. A long silence stretched between us, broken only by the distant hum of a passing car. I swallowed hard, thinking about my own losses, the voids that had grown in my life. I know how that feels, I whispered, my throat tightening. 3 years ago, I lost Maggie. She had cancer, and it took her so fast. Tracy's eyes widened in surprise. I didn't know. I nodded, swallowing back the grief that still stung every time I said Maggie's name. It was awful. Watching her slip away was like losing a part of myself. And my mother, she couldn't handle it. She became someone else, angry, lost. It felt like I lost her too, even though she's still here. A tear slipped down Tracy's cheek, and she reached across the table, taking my hand in hers. I'm so sorry, Virginia. Losing someone like that, it changes you. I blinked back my own tears and nodded. It does. For a moment, the two of us sat in quiet understanding, bound by the pain we had each endured. Then Tracy spoke again, her voice steadier. That's why you have to keep going, Virginia. Don't let what happened to me or what happened to Maggie hold you back. You have a gift, and you can't let anyone take that away from you. Not even yourself. I nodded, her words sinking into my soul. Tracy had lost her dreams because of someone else, but I still had a chance to fight for mine. Maggie wouldn't have wanted me to give up either. I won't, I promised. I'll make it. I owe it to her, and to myself. The weeks that followed my reunion with Tracy were filled with a renewed sense of purpose. Every free moment I had was spent rehearsing in the back room of the gas station, my voice filling the small space, echoing off the oil-stained walls. But as my dreams began to take shape, so did the obstacles in my path, namely Sharon. Sharon, the gas station manager, had always been difficult. She was the type who seemed to enjoy seeing others stuck in the same dead end as herself. But ever since I had started talking about music, my ambitions seemed to trigger something darker in her. I quickly became her target. Why are you always late from your break, Babcock? Sharon snapped one afternoon, leaning against the doorframe of the small stockroom. I wiped the sweat from my forehead, heart still racing from the impromptu vocal practice I'd squeezed in. I wasn't late, I replied, keeping my voice steady. I've been here the whole time just singing again, weren't you? She cut me off, her lips curling into a sneer. You're always wasting time on that useless hobby of yours. I gritted my teeth but didn't respond. Arguing with Sharon never ended well, and I couldn't afford to lose this job, not with rent due and my mother still struggling. But she wasn't finished. You think you're gonna be some big star, huh? Sharon continued, her voice dripping with sarcasm. Singers like you don't make it, Virginia. You're just another small-town girl with big dreams and no real talent. Her words stung, but I refused to let her see how much they affected me. Instead, I nodded quietly and returned to stacking the shelves, ignoring the sharp glance she threw my way. As the days passed, Sharon's oppressive behavior only intensified. She started giving me the worst shifts, closing late at night and opening early in the morning, making sure I was always too exhausted to even think about practicing. She micromanaged my every move, finding fault with the smallest things, even when there was nothing to criticize. One particularly rough evening, as I was about to clock out after a grueling double shift, Sharon appeared again, blocking my way. Where do you think you're going? She demanded. I'm off the clock, Sharon. I'm done for the night, I replied, trying to push past her. Not until you clean the restrooms, she smirked. They're filthy. My jaw clenched in frustration. I knew for a fact that it wasn't my responsibility to clean the restrooms, and they hadn't been touched by a customer in hours. But standing up to Sharon would only make things worse. So I grabbed the mop and headed for the bathroom, biting back the anger that was bubbling up inside me. As I scrubbed the floors, the harsh smell of disinfectant filling my nose, I replayed Tracy's words in my head. You can't let people like her get to you. You've got a gift, and no one can take that away from you. I finished the job and trudged home, my legs aching and my spirit weary. But no matter how hard Sharon tried to grind me down, I refused to let her kill my dreams. Despite Sharon's relentless oppression, The day finally came when Tracy called me with news that felt like a lifeline. "I found a vocal coach for you," she said over the phone, her voice full of excitement. "He's in the city and he wants to meet you next week." My heart raced with equal parts excitement and fear. This was the chance I had been waiting for, the moment that could change everything. But even with Tracy's unwavering support, doubt started to creep in. What if I wasn't good enough? What if Sharon had been right all along? That doubt clung to me like a shadow as I arrived at the gas station the next morning. I could feel Sharon's eyes on me the moment I stepped inside. "Another late start?" she asked, her tone dripping with false sweetness. "You've been distracted lately, Virginia. You'd better not be thinking about skipping out on your job for that ridiculous singing stuff." I ignored her and headed straight for the counter, trying to bury myself in my work. But Sharon wasn't one to let things go. She hovered around me, watching every move I made, waiting for the slightest mistake. Later that afternoon, when a shipment arrived, she ordered me to unload the boxes, usually a two-person job, by myself. I strained to lift the heavy crates, my arms shaking under the weight. "Careful. Don't hurt yourself," Sharon said mockingly as she walked past. "Wouldn't want you losing your voice. Though it's not like anyone would notice." I bit my tongue, refusing to give her the satisfaction of seeing me react. But each insult, each passive-aggressive jab, made it harder to keep my composure. That night, I went home exhausted, physically and emotionally. But as I sat in the quiet of my small apartment, I thought about Tracy's own struggles, how she had let someone else take her dreams away. I wasn't going to let that happen to me. Not now, not when I was so close. The day of my meeting with the vocal coach, Michael, arrived like a lifeline in the middle of the storm that Sharon had been raining down on me. Tracy came with me to the city, offering words of encouragement on the ride there. Michael was a tall, thin man with a sharp eye and a no-nonsense attitude. He listened as I introduced myself, his expression unreadable. When I finally sang for him, my voice trembling at first but growing stronger with each note, something shifted in his demeanor. "You've got talent," he said, nodding slowly. "But talent alone isn't enough. Are you ready to work harder than you ever have before?" I met his gaze, the weight of Sharon's torment and Tracy's encouragement sitting heavy in my chest. "Yes, I'm ready." From that day forward, my life was no longer dictated by the gas station. Every spare moment I had was spent rehearsing, performing at small gigs, and learning from Michael. Sharon continued her petty tactics, scheduling me for impossible shifts, mocking my ambitions at every opportunity, but I no longer let her affect me. I had something bigger in my life now. As I performed in small bars and clubs, Tracy was always there, cheering me on. And with each performance, each step toward my dream, Sharon's words grew fainter and fainter, like a bad dream I was slowly waking up from. She had tried to keep me in that gas station, but now I was far beyond her reach. A year had passed since I first walked into Michael's studio, uncertain if I could ever live up to the expectations that others, and even I, had placed on me. But in that year, my life had transformed in ways I never imagined. I had performed in countless venues, some small, some larger, each one building my confidence and reputation. People had started to take notice. Invitations to perform at more prestigious events poured in. It was everything I had dreamed of and more. And somewhere along the way, amidst the long nights of practice and the nerve-wracking performances, I had met Nathan, a brilliant young composer whose music stirred something deep inside me the moment I first heard it. He was everything I wasn't, calm, steady, and deeply thoughtful, but with a fire for creativity that mirrored my own. Our connection, both musically and personally, was instant. It wasn't long before we were spending nearly every waking moment together, collaborating on songs, and slowly, inevitably, falling in love. We got married in a small, intimate ceremony with only close friends and family present. Tracy was there, standing by my side, beaming with pride as if she were my own mother. But there was one more thing I had to do before closing that chapter of my life completely. Nathan and I drove in silence as we approached the old gas station where I used to work. The sleek black car glided smoothly along the familiar, worn-down streets. A sense of nostalgia mixed with disbelief filled me. It had been over a year since I'd set foot in that place, and now here I was on the other side of the dream, with success under my belt and a husband who shared my passions. The contrast couldn't have been clearer. As we pulled into the lot, the station looked exactly the same: faded paint, flickering neon sign, and the unmistakable smell of gasoline in the air. Sharon's car, an old beat-up sedan, was parked in her usual spot near the entrance. I couldn't help but smile, remembering all the times I had envisioned this very moment. Only now, it wasn't about revenge, it was about closure. "Are you sure you want to do this?" Nathan asked, glancing over at me with a knowing smile. "Absolutely," I replied, my voice steady, but with a hint of excitement. "This is something I need to do." We parked near one of the pumps, and I stepped out, adjusting my sunglasses as the late afternoon sun cast a golden hue over the station. Sharon was behind the counter, flipping through a magazine, clearly oblivious to who had just walked in. I leaned on the counter, waiting for her to look up. When she finally did, her eyes widened for just a fraction of a second before she regained her usual sneer. Well, look who it is," Sharon said, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. "The famous singer, back at the little gas station. What, running out of fuel for your dreams?" I didn't flinch. Instead, I smiled and handed her $50 for the tank we had just filled. "Keep the change," I said, sliding the money across the counter, watching as her eyes flicked to the bills in disbelief. For a moment, she was speechless, her face turning a deep shade of red as she realized what had just happened. $50 was way more than the cost of the gas. It wasn't just a tip, it was a statement. I could see the humiliation and anger flare in her eyes, her mouth pressing into a tight line as she struggled to maintain her composure. "You think you're so much better now, don't you?" she hissed under her breath, her hands trembling as she took the money. "You haven't changed at all. Just because you're in some fancy car and married to a rich man, you think you can waltz in here and—" "I don't think I'm better than anyone, Sharon," I interrupted, my voice calm but firm. "I've worked hard to get where I am, and I haven't forgotten where I came from." With that, I turned and walked back to the car, leaving her standing there fuming. I knew I didn't need to say more. The sight of me driving away in that car, successful and free from the weight she had once tried to chain me to, was enough to drive the point home. As Nathan pulled out of the station, I couldn't help but glance back one last time. Sharon stood at the window, flushed with rage, the $50 bill still clutched in her hand. But it no longer mattered what she thought of me. I was beyond her reach now, beyond the pettiness and bitterness that had once tried to hold me down. "Feel better?" Nathan asked, grinning as we sped down the road. "Much better," I laughed, leaning back in my seat and closing my eyes, feeling a sense of peace wash over me. Now I can finally let that part of my life go. A year later, my daughter was born, and we named her Tracy, just as we had promised. Every time I held her, I was reminded of how far I had come, and how much love and support had helped me achieve my dreams. I had finally found my place in the world, surrounded by the music I loved and the family I had always dreamed of. And as for Sharon, she was nothing more than a faint memory in the rearview mirror.